Do you live in a neighborhood where nothing happens? The kind of neighborhood where the loudest thing at night is the hum of air conditioners and the occasional bark of a restless dog. That's why, when I found the first package on my porch at 3 in the morning, I didn't know what to think. It was a plain brown box. No shipping label, no return address, no writing at all. Just sitting there on my welcome mat like it belonged. At first, I thought it was a prank. Maybe some kid leaving junk on porches for fun. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. Inside was a stuffed bear. Old, worn, and familiar. It was mine. The same one I lost when I was 10 years old, during a family move across states. There was no way anyone could have found it. No way it should even exist in that box. I almost convinced myself that I was mistaken, that maybe I'd bought a similar bear years ago and just forgotten about it. But deep down I knew it was the same one. The stitching on its left ear, the faded ribbon, everything. The next night, another box appeared. This time, it was an old baseball cap I wore in high school. The sweat stained one my mom had thrown away because it smelled so bad. I was sure of it. By the third night, I wasn't amused anymore. That box had one of my notebooks from college. The kind I'd filled with messy late-night sketches. Pages torn, corners bent exactly as I remembered. It didn't make sense. These weren't things I had lost recently. These were pieces of my life that should have been gone forever. That's when I started checking the porch every hour, hoping to catch whoever was leaving them. But the boxes always appeared when I wasn't looking. So I bought a cheap security camera and set it up above my door. The following night, I stayed awake, glued to the feed on my phone. Around 3, I heard the dull thump of a box hitting the porch. My heart pounded as I rewound the footage. There was nothing. The box just appeared. One frame the porch was empty. The next frame it wasn't, like it had materialized out of thin air. Inside that box was a DVD. No markings, no cover. Just a disc in a cracked plastic case. Against my better judgment, I put it into my laptop. The video started with static. Then an image flickered into focus. My bedroom. The angle was from the corner near the closet, aimed at my bed. I watched myself sleeping. I froze. The timestamp on the video was from the night before. The camera that recorded it wasn't mine. I checked every corner of the room after that, but there was no camera, nothing that could have filmed me. That night, I locked every door and window, pulled the curtains shut, and sat in the living room with a baseball bat. Still, at exactly 3, another box landed on the porch. I didn't want to open it. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside was a photo. Me again in bed. But this time, it wasn't from the night before. It was from that exact moment. I was wearing the same clothes, holding the same bat, sitting in the same spot on the couch. I tore the photo to shreds and nearly smashed my phone in panic. I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind against the siding felt like fingers dragging along the walls. The next night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait. I was going to open the door the second I heard the package hit. At 3 on the dot, I heard the thump, hard hammering. I yanked the door open. The street was empty. The quiet sack stretched out under the yellow glow of streetlights. No car, no shadowy figure, no movement at all. Just the box, sitting on the doormat. I bent down and picked it up. This one was heavier. Cold, almost metallic. My fingers fumbled at the tape as I peeled it open. Inside was a small monitor. An old, portable screen, humming faintly with static before the picture sharpened. I staggered back. On the screen was me, standing on the porch, holding the monitor. The feed was live, showing me in real time. But there was something else. Behind me, in the video, a figure loomed. Tall, faceless, leaning in over my shoulder. My breath caught in my throat. The screen went black. And then I felt a warm breath against the back of my neck. When my wife and I first pulled into the new neighborhood, it looked like something out of a commercial. Rows of freshly built houses with identical gables, driveways perfectly aligned, lawns so green and flawless they looked painted. There were kids riding bikes, A couple walking their golden retriever, neighbors waving at us with wide smiles. It felt too good to be true, but we needed a fresh start. A new job opportunity had brought me across the state, and this place, Maple Hollow Estates, had been advertised as affordable and safe. My wife loved the idea of living somewhere quiet. I loved the idea of finally having a yard. The first week was fine, almost suspiciously fine. Every morning, I'd leave for work, and every neighbor I passed would wave at me. The same smile, the same wave, the same exact words, "Welcome to the neighborhood," even after the fourth or fifth time. At first, I laughed about it with my wife. It's like they're rehearsing. I joked, but after a while, it didn't feel funny. It felt rehearsed. The second week, I noticed something strange. I was sipping coffee on the porch before work when I realized I had never seen a single car leave the neighborhood. Not once. No engine starting, no garage doors opening, no headlights at night. I mentioned it to my wife, and she shrugged it off. Maybe they just work from home, she said. But the more I looked, the weirder it got. The neighbors always seemed busy, watering lawns, trimming hedges, sweeping driveways. But I never saw anyone actually use their houses. No one carried groceries inside. No one left for errands. And every night, without fail, all the lights in the houses clicked off at the exact same time. 10 o'clock sharp. It bothered me enough that one evening, I decided to take a walk after dark. My wife was asleep, and I slipped out quietly. The streets were empty. Too empty. Every house sat in perfect silence, their windows black, like they weren't homes but hollow shells. I crept closer to one, peeking through the blinds. What I saw didn't make sense. The living room was there, couch, TV, a coffee table, but it looked wrong. Too clean, too still, like a stage set in a furniture store. I pressed closer and realized the TV wasn't real, just a frame, with a blank screen painted glossy black. The couch looked stiff, almost like it was made of cardboard on the fabric. I backed away, skin crawling. The next day, I tried talking to one of the neighbors, a man watering his lawn across the street. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "Do you work nearby?" He turned, water still spraying from the hose, and smiled that same wide smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood." I frowned. "Yeah, thanks. But I mean, what do you do for a living?" He tilted his head, as if confused by the question. Then, after a pause, "I mow the lawn." And that was it. He just went back to spraying the same patch of grass, not moving an inch. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 9:59, I sat by the window, staring out. And right on time, at exactly 10 o'clock, every light on the street went dark at once. I whispered to my wife, shaking her awake, "Did you see that?" She mumbled something and rolled over, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next evening, I did something reckless. While my wife showered, I slipped outside again and headed straight for one of the houses. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was stale. No smell of food, no lived-in clutter. Just bare rooms with half-finished furniture. A bed with no mattress. A lamp with no bulb. Picture frames on the wall with smiling strangers. Stock photos, I realized, of models I'd seen in online catalogs. It wasn't a home. It was a stage. Then I heard something. A soft shuffle behind me. I spun around. At the end of the hall stood a woman, one of the neighbors I'd waved earlier that week. She was just standing there, smiling, too wide, too still. "Sorry," I stammered. I thought I heard something." She didn't answer. She just kept smiling. Her lips trembled slightly, like holding the expression in place took effort. I bolted out the door and didn't stop running until I was back inside my own house. That night, I lay awake until morning, heart pounding at every sound. My wife thought I was imagining things. Maybe I wanted to believe I was. But the following night ended all doubt. I woke at 3 a.m. to a sound. Not outside, inside. A steady, synchronized shuffle, like footsteps dragging on the street. I crept to the window and looked out. Every neighbor was there. They stood shoulder to shoulder across the street, perfectly aligned, staring directly at my house. their faces lit faintly by the streetlights, each one frozen in that same uncanny smile. I couldn't breathe. One of them, the man with the hose, raised his arm slowly and pointed at my window. And then, in eerie unison, the rest began walking forward. Not fast, not rushing, just slowly, deliberately, closing the distance with every step. I stumbled back, grabbed my wife, tried to shake her awake, but she didn't stir, not even when I yelled. She just lay there, motionless, like a doll placed too carefully on the bed. Panic surged through me. I ran to the back door, yanked it open, and sprinted toward the unfinished part of the neighborhood, the houses still under construction. Only, they weren't under construction. The frames of the houses were there, yes, but when I looked closer, the wood wasn't wood at all, just hollow panels, painted to look real. Beyond them, more sets of false walls stretched out, like the backdrop of a stage. And then I realized the whole neighborhood wasn't real. It was a facade, a hollow set built for one purpose, to keep me here. I turned back, and in the distance, I saw the line of neighbors still coming, their smiles wide, their heads tilted, arms reaching as they marched into the unfinished streets. I don't know how long I can keep running. I don't even know if there's anywhere to run to. But if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, don't move here. Don't come to Maple Hollow Estates. Because once you do, you can never leave. When I first moved into this neighborhood, an old man across the street gave me a strange warning. He leaned on his cane, pointed at my house, and said, "If you ever hear whistling at 3 a.m, don't look outside. Don't even move." I laughed it off. I thought he was just another lonely retiree trying to spook the new guy. But he didn't laugh. He just shook his head, his face pale, and shuffled back into his house without another word. For weeks, I forgot all about it. Life was quiet here, calm. The kind of suburb where nothing happens. Until one night, when I woke up to use the bathroom. That's when I heard it. A tune, faint but clear, drifting through the night air. Whistling. It wasn't random either. It was a melody. Simple, childish, like something from an old lullaby. And it was coming from outside, right down my street. I froze. My heart began to race as the old man's warning echoed in my head. I crept to the window and parted the curtain just an inch. The street was empty, but the whistling continued, slow and steady, moving closer. I let go of the curtain and backed away. The sound lasted for maybe 5 minutes before fading into silence. Eventually, I convinced myself it was just some drunk teenager, or maybe my imagination. But the next morning, one of my neighbors' houses was empty. The family was gone. Both cars still in the driveway, all the lights still on, breakfast plates half, eaten on the table. But no people. They never came back. I told myself it was a coincidence. People move, things happen. But 2 weeks later, I heard the whistling again. This time it was louder, closer. I sat up in bed, clutching the sheets, my ears straining. The tune was playful, but wrong. Notes held too long, breaths too sharp. And with every pause, it felt like whoever was whistling was listening for movement. I didn't dare look. The sound passed by my house, lingered for a moment, then drifted away into the night. The next morning, another house was empty. No sign of struggle, no packing, no goodbye. Just gone. I asked around, but the neighbors wouldn't talk. When I mentioned the whistling, they just shook their heads quickly and changed the subject. All except the old man across the street. "You heard it," he said, his voice trembling. "You're marked now." "What do you mean, marked?" I asked. He leaned closer. "It comes for someone different each time. If you hear it more than once, it's only a matter of time." I wanted to press him for more, but he shut his door and didn't answer again. That night, I set up my phone to record. I wanted proof. If there really was some creep wandering around, I'd catch the sound. At 2:58, I sat in bed, staring at the ceiling. At 3 o'clock exactly, the whistling began. I held my breath, watching the phone's recording light blink. The tune got closer, closer, until it was right outside my window. I could hear the breaths between notes, shaky, almost wet. And then silence. I forced myself to stay still. Minutes crawled by. Finally, the whistling moved on, fading down the street. Shaking, I grabbed my phone and stopped the recording. I replayed it immediately. Nothing. Just silence. No whistling, no breathing, no sound at all. I couldn't sleep after that. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow looked like it was leaning closer. Over the next week, the whistling came back 3 more times. Each time closer. Each time, stopping a little longer by my window. I stopped recording. What was the point? It never showed up anyway. By the 4th night, I was unraveling. I barely ate, barely slept. I kept the lights on, clutching a kitchen knife like it would make a difference. My wife had left me months before the move, and now, alone in that house, I started to wonder if maybe I was losing my mind. But then came the 5th night. The whistling started at the end of the street, soft and playful. I sat in the dark, teeth chattering, trying to remind myself not to move, not to look. But curiosity gnawed at me. I couldn't resist. As the sound reached my yard, I slowly, carefully, inched the curtain aside. The street was empty, just the dim glow of the lampposts. But the tune was still there, right beneath my window. And then it stopped. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear anyone walk away. Just silence. I let out a shaky breath and glanced at the window glass. And that's when I saw it. In the reflection, over my shoulder, stood a child. A boy, maybe 8 years old, pale skin, dark hollow eyes. He was smiling. No, grinning. His mouth stretched far too wide, teeth too sharp. I spun around, knife raised. No one was there. The room was empty. But when I looked back at the window, the reflection was still there. The boy was still grinning, his lips moving silently, as if whispering words I couldn't hear. I dropped the knife. My hands trembled so hard I thought I'd faint. Then, slowly, the reflection began to whistle. The same tune, from inside the glass. I stumbled backward, tripping over the bed, my heart hammering. The boy's grin widened as his face pressed closer to the inside of the reflection, like he was about to step through. And then, silence again. The glass went dark, showing only my own terrified reflection. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I've slept since. The next morning, people said they heard the whistling again. But this time, they noticed something different. They said they saw me, walking down the street at 3 a.m., my mouth stretched into a wide smile, whistling that same awful tune. The problem is, I never left my bed. At least, I don't think I did.